So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone SE 2020 versus iPhone XR. Which should you buy? This is going to be a question as both of these are still for sale. Now, price. Well, let's just go with the SE. $399. You're going to get this phone right here at a much cheaper price. So if you're more price conscious and you're just like, you know what, give me the newest, the cheapest iPhone I can buy, go with the SE. It's going to take the win. Now, this is going for $599 for the XR, goes up from there. You can get both of these and up to 128, 256 gig storage capacities if you want them there. Now, when it comes to the body, I'm going with the SE once again. Reason why is the SE is a more comfortable size, I think, for everyone than the XR. Many people believe that they had to go to the XR because Apple just wasn't releasing a smaller iPhone, and a lot of them did, and now they come out with the SE, you might want to be going back to the SE. But you can see right here, this phone will literally fit inside the display of the XR. So what does that mean for everyday life? Well, just more comfortable to hold. And if this is still too big for you, the iPhone SE 2020, you can still just hit reachability and bring it down. In addition to that, there is a zoom mode to make these icons even larger, making them even easier to press here on the iPhone SE. Now, there's also zoom mode on the XR, but they don't get this huge as you can see right here. These are some very large icons. We're going to leave them there for this video. Now, when it comes to the design, the XR for me is the winner. You can see you're going to get this newer feeling iPhone design. Now, yes, it's not newest. There's a lot more, Android phones that are now out that are not giving you big cutouts like that or thicker bezels around the edges. But if you look at the bezels on this iPhone versus this iPhone, the experience of the XR's design is just it's a lot more modern feeling than this. This is old school iPhone right here. So for me, design goes to the XR. Now, when it comes to the display, if we go ahead and pull up here, you can see gets very bright, like 625 nits. Over here, same thing, very bright, like 625 nits. Both of these do have a similar Retina display. However, this one kind of seems to be a little bit more enjoyable just because it's so much larger than the iPhone SE from 2020. Also, we do have True Tone on both of these, dark mode on both of them, and they both look nice in dark mode as well. Just because they have LCDs doesn't make them a horrible experience to use dark mode. Also, night shift is nice for the nighttime. They get really yellow, make it easy to, get out that blue light out of your face. And overall, the displays are pretty similar in quality, but again, much larger, much more, apps are going to take a lot of space on this phone, so you can just really enjoy your games and stuff on this device, and social media will be really large for the XR, looking at pictures and photos. It really just comes down to, do you like the larger, displays of today, or do you like the older, smaller displays of yesteryear? That's really how it's going to come down to here. But for me, I would give the win to the XR just because you're just getting so much display in this body. Now, when it comes to software, I'm going to call it a tie. It's pretty similar software. You have to swipe up from the bottom there, swipe up from the top on the XR. The XR does use the gestures, whereas the SE, you use the home button to go between applications. But the XR definitely has the more modern iPhone feel, where Apple wants to take the iPhone in the future. This one is still the older home button. And if you just don't want to adopt this new style, well, this might be the last edition of this type of phone that you're going to be able to get. Maybe there'll be a Plus model this year, but it's probably going to be the last time you're going to see this type of device with this type of way of operating iOS going down the line. So for me, I would call them a tie because it really comes down to your preference on how the software operates. And while the SE will get longer iOS support just because it's got a better processor than the XR, it also does have a newer camera setup, very similar to the iPhone 11 series. You can change the video quality right here. The XR still offers the gestures and the bigger and the newer way of operating the iPhone. So they both got their pros and cons, so I'm calling them pretty much a tie there. And it's not like the A12 is not going to be supported for a long time. It's still going to be supported very long. Now, when it comes to performance, we have to give it to the SE. Check out my speed test between the SE and the XR to see how the XR didn't beat the SE everywhere. It does have an A13 over here, and that's really the king feature of this phone is the speed. You're just gonna love how fast you of a performance you get in this small body. It really is quite amazing the speed you get on this phone. in the day-to-day for the SE. Now, the 10R is no slouch. The 10R is an absolute monster performer as well with the A12. Nobody's complaining about the A12 performance. This thing flies through everything, and the gestures make it a smoother transition coming in and out of your apps back to the home screen. But again, the SE, it does benchmark better. It does have the better scores, and it is the faster phone. So I'm giving the SE the win in performance day to day. Now, when it comes to the storage, I'm going to give the storage round to the iPhone SE. And the reason I'm going to do this is because the SE does give you more storage, I think, for the money. You definitely get more storage. I mean, the 256 gig storage on the iPhone SE is cheaper than the starting storage on the iPhone XR. Now, for the main camera, the SE wins again in terms of the single camera. Reason being is that its HDR processing is up there with the iPhone 11 and the 11 Pro, whereas the XR wins on the front-facing camera, but the XR is not far off this SE on that rear camera either. It also has smart HDR processing, and it can do portrait mode just like this phone, only with people, just like the SE. You can use the Halidi, I think it's called the Halidi app, to do objects detection with portrait, but in the stock camera app, they both only do human detection. But the XR doesn't have that newer software where you can change the video settings right in here. So there is some things to be said about the SE, but where the XR does win is the selfie quality. The XR has a better selfie camera, can do 1080 60 on the front, whereas the video quality is limited to 1080 30 on this phone right here in the iPhone SE. So for me, the camera round is a mixed. It's front camera to the XR, rear camera to the SE. But these are super close in the camera, and I think other factors will weigh heavier than this camera, because both of these are going to offer you a similarly great experience on the cameras, both front and rear. Neither of them do have their own night modes though, which came with the iPhone 11 series. So you're gonna have to use third-party apps to use some night features if you'd like. So when it comes to the audio, let's have a listen to both.
So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology.
Dual speakers, but the one on the bottom of the SE is stronger.
Welcome to the SE 2020 versus
Let's have a listen to the XR.
iPhone SE 2020 versus iPhone's
Now the XR
success speed test coming up. Let's go.
has more of an equal balance on top and bottom, but they're both similarly loud, so I'm calling them about a draw here again. You have stereo speakers on both. You're not really going to be disappointed. No headphone jacks on either. Now, when it comes to biometrics, we're dealing with fingerprint scanner, Touch ID over here. Very fast, very efficient, can work on a table. You don't even have to look at it. It will unlock. Whereas with the XR, we are dealing with Face ID. Just look at the phone and you are in. Look again, you are in. Really, again, this is preference. I'm calling them a tie. I'm not calling them a tie because they're the same. I'm calling them a tie because I think some people prefer Touch ID and some prefer Face ID. Face ID is more secure in that it's harder to break Face ID than Touch ID, but both of them are super secure. So I don't think anybody's breaking either of these. But here's the deal. It really comes down to what do you prefer here. And so for that reason, I'm calling it about a draw there. Now, when it comes to the battery life, we have a clear win to the XR. There's just no question about it. You can watch my battery test. The XR far outlasted the SE, and in real world everyday performance, it far outlasts the SE. So if battery matters, get the XR. I mean, the XR's price can be justified solely in the battery performance alone. We're talking maybe an hour to 2 hours better on screen time daily. And if you're really being light on both phones, definitely around 2 hours better on the XR. So for me, I'm going with the XR when it comes to battery life. Now, here's an area where the XR let me down a lot was the phone call quality. So I'm giving the win to the SE. I've been having great performance with reception, phone call quality on this SE so far. So for me, I'm giving the win here to the SE. When it comes to colors, I'm giving the win to the XR. The XR has product red, the XR has coral, has blue, has white, has all these beautiful colors, yellow. I mean, there's a lot of colors for the XR. So the XR wins hands down when it comes to the colors. And so we've reached a final conclusion. I tallied up the scores for these two right here, and you can see what did happen. SE won 6 rounds. It was a tie in 3, and it was 5 to the XR. So a very, very close call here. A slight win to the SE being a slightly better value here. But again, all of this is going to be subjective, and it's going to be based on what matters more to you, because it's almost a draw here. It's really going to come down to How important is the battery life, for example? The 10R is going to give you better, but how important is the compact body that's more comfortable? The SE is going to win out there. So kind of weigh these options out, weigh what's more important to you. And if more of the ones the 10R want are more important to you, then the 10R is for you. If more of the ones that the iPhone SE went out is more important to you, then the SE is the winner. But these are extremely close. Now for a clear pick, if I only could pick one of these two phones, I'm personally probably gonna go with the SE just because I like that it's small, it's compact, it's gonna get longer software support, it's got the same camera software as the newer iPhones. And while I love the 10R, I think it's a little bit wide, a little bit too tall and less comfy for most people. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. Which would you pick? Did you go back to the SE? Did you pick up an SE from your 10R? Let us know down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Thank you very much for all your support. Stay safe out there and peace.